Kalu, Jude, and Ekaette were just three friends, sharing laughs over lunch. But one woman watched from the shadows and wanted more. Ekaette couldn't win Kalu's heart, so she bewitched his soul. One drop in his food, and he became her puppet. He vanished from work, from home, from himself. His friends prayed, fought, cried, until one morning, Kalu woke up in her bed and didn't remember how he got there. What happened next will haunt you. Subscribe to Forbidden Folktale for more chilling, true life-inspired tales. In the heart of Port Harcourt's bustling Rumola district, tucked between rusted fences and weather-worn billboards, stood a modest telecommunications firm. It wasn't one of those glassy skyscrapers with sliding doors and air-freshened lobbies. No, this was a concrete block building with humming fans, faded posters on the wall, and a receptionist who never smiled before noon. Inside, three friends, Kalu, Jude, and Ekaette, worked in the sales department. They were young, driven, and had formed a bond as tight as brothers. Every day they pushed through endless customer complaints, inconsistent network coverage, and impossible sales targets. But what kept their spirits alive was one thing: lunch break. You see, just a 10-minute walk from the office, past two dusty kiosks and a black and white painted fence, was Mama Ekaette's canteen. It wasn't fancy, just a zinc roof shack with plastic chairs and long wooden benches, but the aroma that wafted from her pots was enough to paralyze traffic. The agusi was thick, the jollof had soul, and the nkwobi was strong enough to heal heartbreak. But it wasn't just the food that made the place magnetic. There was Ekaette, 24, bold and full of curves. Ekaette was the fire behind the flame. She was the only daughter of Mama Ekaette, and she ran the canteen with the kind of energy only Calabar girls had. Her skin was a rich caramel brown, her waist beads peaked whenever she leaned forward to serve, and her eyes had that mischievous sparkle that could make a grown man forget his own name. But Ekaette had a soft spot, one that grew into a silent obsession. His name was Kalu, tall, dark-skinned, with clean-shaven lines and eyes that always looked like they knew a secret. Kalu was the quiet charm of the trio, while Jude was the loudmouth and Ekaette the clown. Kalu spoke little and smiled less, but when he did, it was like Hamatan's sun, sharp, brief, unforgettable. The first time Ekaette noticed him, he was eating quietly, fufu and bitter leaf soup, listening to Jude argue about politics. She stood by the food counter, wiping her hands on a towel that had seen better days, and just watched him. There was something in the way he chewed, thoughtfully, the way he occasionally nodded or raised an eyebrow at his friends' jokes. He was calm, classy, unreachable. And just like that, Ekaette fell. From that day, her game began. She started with the food. Kalu's plate was always bigger, his meat softer, his pepper more balanced. Then came the looks, soft glances when he walked in, brushing his hand accidentally as she handed him change, wearing shorter skirts, tighter tops, subtle moves, each calculated to catch his eye. But Kalu wasn't catching anything. Not the signals, not the glances, not the feelings. He was polite, yes. He greeted her with a quiet "good afternoon." He thanked her when served. But beyond that, nothing. At first, Ekaette thought maybe he was shy. So she doubled her efforts, wrote small notes in his serviette, added extra pommeau to his plate. She even once served him herself while humming a love song. If yo ma, I want to marry you. Still, nothing. One afternoon, as the boys were finishing their drinks, Jude nudged Kalu playfully and whispered, "Guy, that Ekaette babe is giving you eyes, oh? You know they see?" Kalu chuckled, shaking his head. "She's not my type." Ah, you be prince? She fine na, shape day, face day, Food way she dey cook go kill person. Kalu smiled faintly. I just don't mix business with that. What Kalu didn't know was Ekaette heard everything. She had stepped out to clear a table behind them and caught just enough to feel the sting. She's not my type. The words echoed in her chest like thunder on tin. Her heart bruised, her pride wounded, Ekaette retreated that day. But not for long. Where charm failed, she would try something else, something older. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the palm trees and streetlights began flickering to life, Ekaette visited someone she hadn't seen in years, Auntie Miriam, her late father's sister. A native healer, bones and beads in her sitting room, and a cat with 2 different colored eyes. Miriam sat calmly as Ekaette poured out her heart, about the boy who didn't see her, the pain of feeling invisible, the ache of rejection. Miriam listened in silence, then rose and disappeared into a back room. When she returned, she held a small brown bottle and a cloth pouch. This is Mukpaw Ndi, a love puller. Not poison, not juju, just a blend. Put 1 drop in his food. 1. Don't overdose. But be warned, if his spirit resists, strange things can happen. Ekaette nodded, hands trembling slightly. She didn't care. She wanted Kalu. And if love wouldn't come naturally, then nature had to be helped. The next day was Thursday. The office was unusually tense. Targets were due. But for Ekaette, it was showtime. She wore a red wrapper and a blouse so tight it might declare war. Her lips were glossy, her eyes alert. When the trio arrived, laughing, dusty from the heat, she greeted them with unusual softness. "Special for my favorite customers," she cooed, placing down the plates. But Kalu's meal was different. Beneath the steaming egusi, nestled beside the fresh goat meat, was 1 carefully hidden drop of the thick, dark substance. And Kalu ate. He chewed. He swallowed. He licked his fingers and even smiled slightly. "Today food sweet, oh," he said. Jude laughed. "Abi, na Ekaette love day inside." But no one knew how true those words were. As the friends walked back to the office, something shifted. Kalu walked a little slower. He looked back at the canteen once, then again. By evening, he seemed distracted, blinking as if coming out of sleep. By nightfall, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The smell of egusi, her smile, her voice. By morning, he found himself passing by the canteen alone. By the 3rd day, he started texting her. Just small chats at first. "How's business? Your food's sweet, oh? Thanks for lunch." Ekaette was careful. She played along, subtle, sweet, patient, and the potion deepened its grip. By the end of the week, Kalu was sitting inside the canteen at odd hours, talking with Ekaette, laughing, complimenting her hair. Jude noticed. Amechi noticed. They said nothing at first, but in the coming days, Kalu began skipping lunch with them, then skipping office hours, then making excuses. One night, Jude called him, irritated. "Guy, wetin day sup? You dey avoid us?" Kalu replied calmly. "You won't understand. Ekaette gets me. We connect." Amechi laughed bitterly when he heard that. "Connect, K? With Ekaette? Bro, this is not normal. That girl do you something." But by then, It was already too late. Kalu was smiling more, but it was the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. He wasn't just falling in love. He was falling under control. Something about Kalu changed. It didn't happen overnight, but it was clear, like a stain on white cloth. His posture became slouched. His voice was slower, like he was constantly in a dream. The spark in his eyes dimmed, and his sense of direction, once sharp and focused, now drifted like a boat without an anchor. At work, Jude and Ekaette noticed first. "Kalu, you day all right?" Ekaette asked one Monday morning when Kalu arrived 2 hours late and couldn't remember the task he was supposed to lead. "I'm fine," Kalu muttered, eyes low. I don't sleep well these days." But that wasn't the only thing. Kalu had started whispering to himself when alone. Sometimes he stared blankly at the wall, muttering Ekaette's name under his breath like a sacred chant. Jude, ever the street-smart one, leaned back in his chair after observing this. "Something is wrong. That girl do jazz." Ekaette didn't believe in charms. Until the night he followed Kalu. He had a strange feeling. After work, instead of going home, he waited by the gate, pretending to be on the phone. And just like clockwork, Kalu exited the building, walked straight past his usual bus stop, crossed the road, and slipped into the narrow path leading toward Et's house. Ekaette followed quietly, keeping a safe distance. He watched as Kalu entered Et's small bungalow without knocking, like he lived there. Inside, the lights were dim, and through the open curtain, Ekaette saw Kalu kneel before her, literally kneel, while yet rubbed his head slowly, like one would a child. It was like a ritual, like he belonged to her. Ekaette turned and ran. The next morning, he burst into the office and dragged Jude outside. "Kalu is gone," he said, breathless. "As in spiritually gone. That girl they control am like goat." Jude didn't need more convincing. They tried confronting Kalu during lunch that day, hoping a little brotherly pressure would snap him out of it. "Kalu, we miss you, man," Jude began, trying to keep it light. "You don't disappear. Not yet you marry?" But Kalu's reply was chilling. "She completes me." Ekaette raised his brows. "She completes you? Na film?" "I've never felt this connected to anyone," Kalu said flatly. "She understands me. You people, you don't." Then he stood up and walked away. Ekaette hissed. "Guy, now she give you food and wash your brain, and you dey talk understand? You need deliverance." But Kalu didn't flinch. His eyes were glazed, like he couldn't hear them anymore. That night, Jude couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replaying the way Kalu looked. It wasn't just love, it was submission, as though something inside him had been unplugged and replaced with a command to obey. He called Ekaette. "We need to do something. This thing no be ordinary." By the next day they agreed. This was a spiritual battle, and if it was spiritual, it needed a spiritual solution. Jude's uncle was a pastor at a small but vibrant Pentecostal church just outside town. The boys began attending midweek services, whispering Kalu's name in every prayer. They fasted. They prayed. They wept. "Lord, deliver our brother," they cried. "Restore him. Break every chain." And still Kalu sank deeper. He stopped coming to the office altogether. The HR team sent emails. His phone rang unanswered. His mother, widowed and old, came to the office one day in tears, asking if anyone had seen her son. "He doesn't come home anymore," she sobbed. He said he's staying with someone called Ekaette. Who is that? Jude's face darkened. This thing don't pass play. Meanwhile, inside Ekaette's house, Kalu had become hers. He cleaned for her, cooked for her, even stopped checking his bank account. He smiled when she smiled. He frowned when she frowned. She told him when to sleep, when to eat, when to speak, and he obeyed without question. But something in Ekaette had changed too. The victory tasted hollow. Kalu was hers, but not in the way she imagined. He didn't laugh like he used to. He didn't flirt. He didn't argue. He just existed, like a robot awaiting instructions. Sometimes at night, she watched him sleep and felt uneasy. His body lay beside her, but his soul felt absent. Still, she held on tighter. She remembered her aunt's warning. If his spirit fights, strange things can happen. So she kept giving him the potion, tiny drops in his tea, in his soup, even in his bath water. But the more she did, the less human he became. Then came the whisperings. She'd catch him standing in corners, speaking in Igbo to voices that weren't there. One night, he stood at the window, arms stiff, whispering, "I am not yours. You borrowed me. I will return." Ekaette panicked. The next morning, she doubled the dose. She sat him down and said, "Your friends want to ruin us. They're jealous. Stay away from them. Promise me, Kalu." Kalu blinked slowly and nodded. "I will stay away." Back at the church, things were heating up. During a Thursday vigil while they prayed for Kalu, the lead pastor suddenly paused and said, "There's a brother being held by the spirit of seduction. A chain of manipulation holds him, but God is preparing to break it." Jude jumped from his seat. "That's Kalu." The pastor continued, "His mind is not in his body. His soul is half asleep. But the Lord says his time is near." Hope surged. They intensified their prayers, declaring Kalu free every night, binding every spiritual trap, calling him back from wherever his soul had been caged. But still, there was silence from him. Weeks passed, until one Friday evening, after 21 days of fasting, Ekaette had a dream. In it, Kalu stood inside a dark room, surrounded by shadows. His hands were tied and his mouth was shut. But behind him, a light began to flicker. A voice whispered, "The chain is cracking." That same night, in Ekaette's house, Kalu stirred in his sleep. He twisted, he muttered, then sat upright, gasping. He looked around the room, the red curtains, the burning incense, the shrine in the corner with white chalk and kola nut pieces. "Where am I?" he whispered. His head throbbed. His chest pounded. He stood and looked at himself in the mirror, his eyes sunken, his beard overgrown. Then he turned and saw Ekaette asleep beside him. His stomach turned. He backed away slowly, heart racing. He didn't remember how he got there. Didn't remember when he moved in. Everything felt like a fog was lifting, and what he saw underneath horrified him. He grabbed his trousers and phone and bolted through the front door, barefoot, into the cold night air. By dawn, he reached his own house. It was dusty, like no one had lived in it for weeks. He charged his phone, trembling, and as soon as it powered on, he called Jude. Jude picked on the second ring. "Kalu?" His voice cracked. "Is that you?" Kalu's voice shook. "I don't know what happened to me. I just woke up. I was in her house. I don't remember anything." Silence. Then Jude shouted, "Ekaette, Kalu is back." They arrived in minutes, embracing him, laughing and crying at the same time. But when they prayed with him, Kalu broke down, weeping, deep, body-wrenching sobs. He collapsed on the floor, clutching his chest. "I wasn't myself," he said between cries. "I heard voices. I couldn't move. I was trapped." And in that moment, the three friends knew. It wasn't love that bound Kalu to Ekaette. It was bondage. But the chain had been broken. Kalu, now free from the spell, finds himself emotionally shaken, but determined to break completely free from Ekaette's control. With Jude and Amechi by his side, he returns to the church where they had been praying for him. That night, during a powerful deliverance service, Kalu falls under the power of intense prayers. He weeps and cries out, releasing months of spiritual oppression. Something deep within him snaps, as if chains were being broken one by one. As he rises from the floor, Kalu feels like himself for the first time in weeks. Clear-headed, free. He vows never to return to Ekaette or the life that nearly destroyed him. Weeks later, Mama Ekaette's canteen suddenly shuts down. The once busy spot becomes a ghost shack. Rumors spread that Ekaette had left town after a series of strange nightmares and mysterious fires that burned her cooking pots without explanation. Kalu, now fully recovered, returns to work. He apologizes to his friends, his mother, and to himself. The bond between the three men grows even stronger, and as they sit together once more at a new lunch spot, Kalu says, "Not every sweet taste is safe. I learned that the hard way." They laugh, but in their eyes is a quiet wisdom. Some love stories aren't written by fate, but by force, and those must be undone.